Good morning and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District meeting of Thursday, July 20th, 2023. We still have an echo. Sorry about that. Can't seem to help it. I'd like to call this meeting to order and to acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District and the Regional Hospital District are within the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish Nations.
Yeah. Let me try this.
Okay, and so we have an agenda before us. Are there any changes, amendments to the agenda? If none, I would like to see a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Wonderful. Chair White will be with us shortly. He's in transit right now, and I am vice chairing in his place until he arrives. So the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the board meeting of April the 20th, 2023. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? And if none, could I see a motion to adopt them? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. That passes. The very first, and I'd also appreciate a motion to receive all reports and communications. Thank you. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Done. So first up is a presentation by Johan Murray, Regional Director, Capital Planning, and Darlene McKinnon, VP of Coastal Community of Care, Vancouver Coastal Health. Do please come up to our new and alarming delegation table.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, everyone. Really happy to be here. My name is Darlene McKinnon, the Vice President for Coastal Health. And I just wanted to thank the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District Board for having us here today to talk about capital planning for Sechelt Hospital. We have prepared a presentation for you. Before we dive into that, and Johan's going to introduce himself and he will lead us through that, I just wanted to take a first few minutes. It's my first time being here to present to you, so I wanted to just introduce myself and a little bit about my role. So as the Vice President for Coastal Community, I serve the North Shore, the Central Coast, the Sunshine Coast, and Sea to Sky. And we have 13 of the 14 First Nations that VCH provides care to and works with in our coastal community of care. Over the past few years, with COVID, the health system has faced many challenges, as you would recognize, including the I think the struggles of COVID, struggles of supply chain, the struggles with human resources and recruitment. And so I just want to acknowledge that there is significant work underway across the health authority, responding to the challenges and making sure that we continue to deliver quality care to the people in coastal community. This includes investing in healthcare infrastructure and in the people who operate and deliver the care across our communities. We really appreciate working together with you to address the needs of the hospital as well as the broader health and wellness of the region, and I can't speak enough about how great it is to work with you. We hope to collaborate more closely, which was a request from the Regional Hospital District, and so we intend to work more closely with yourselves and the other regional hospital districts around capital planning. We're proposing the creation of working groups with Vancouver Coastal Health and the Regional Hospital District reps to meet earlier and more regularly throughout the capital planning cycle to discuss healthcare needs of the community and prioritizing that and doing that together. So after the meeting, we will be reaching out to discuss this proposal further, but just wanted to recognize that because it was a request. So it's a pleasure to be here today and to meet all of you. I look forward to working together, and I'll now hand over to Johan, who'll take us through the capital planning for the hospital and the region and discuss the cost-sharing proposal for the upcoming year. We do have a couple of other individuals from Vancouver Coastal Health, who's joined us virtually. We have Glenn Weigel, who's our Project Management Office, and Sam Samsami, who is with Projects and Planning. Over to you, Johan.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Just to introduce myself, Johan Murray, for those who don't know me. Johan Murray, I'm the Regional Director for Capital Planning at Vancouver Coastal Health, which also includes Providence Healthcare. And as Darlene has said, the purpose of my presentation is to provide you an overview of the current capital plan for VCH and Providence Healthcare, and then also towards the end make a formal request to you for one of our projects that we would love to cost share with you. So I'll get right into the presentation itself. Sorry. Scroll down. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. At first, just a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered here on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, including Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. When we are looking at the alignment of what we do on the capital front to our strategic priorities for the organization as a whole, let me just move this a little bit. We strive to provide exceptional care. We innovate for impact, and we love to create a great place to work for our employees, physicians, and clinical staff. This is just a view to kind of provide you with a little bit of a snapshot of the overall complexity of the capital plan for VCH and PHC. The capital plan being right in the center of it. So we have many stakeholders in the process, which includes government, the public, our funding partners such as the Regional Hospital District, the hospital foundations, the VCH and Providence boards, our physicians, our management, and our staff. And in this environment, as you can see on the outside of it, there are many factors that is really influencing the decision making on the capital planning process. Firstly, towards the right is the replacement of our existing assets. And as you know, within healthcare, we have multiple older facilities. We're also dealing with aging equipment in many areas as we're trying and striving towards providing excellent care. We have a mandate letter that is provided to us on an annual basis, so we align with that as well in terms of the capital plan priorities that we set. There is VCH's strategic plan. As I've said, we're dealing with aging equipment. We have an IT infrastructure that is aging at the same time in a similar fashion as our aging infrastructure for our facilities. We address and involve Indigenous health in our decision making. We strive for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then towards the left, we experience a lot of changes in care requirements, and this is more specific in speaking towards our current facilities and how they are designed, and most of them are really old. So you can appreciate that as care evolves, we need to the best of our ability, align our actual facilities and the equipment that we provide to deliver the care. The Facility Condition Index is a measure that's being used provincially and across many areas, not just within health. That gives us an indication of the status of the actual facility. So on a regular basis, we have an assessment that's being done through the Treasury Board, and this happens typically every 5 years, where there's an assessment of our facility, and then a facility condition index is assigned to it, and that informs really the need for the amount of capital planning that we require on an annual basis to keep up with those aging infrastructures. Operational sustainability is quite important. We strive to maintain our facilities to the best that we can. That is a challenge on a regular basis. It's costly. We're sitting in an environment where cost escalations, not just on the capital front, but also as we are maintaining our facilities, is having a huge impact overall. And then as technology changes, we need
Just
to...
1 second. I hate to interrupt you, but
I'm sorry.
Oh,
There
there
we
we
go.
we're back
Thank you.
again. Thanks.
Thank you. It has changed the view on me now, but that's okay. And then planetary health is the last one that I just want to mention. As we develop new facilities, we make sure that we address planetary health within those new facilities and expansions and renovations that we do. The capital planning principles, we strive for operational sustainability. We address the asset condition. We are inclusive of Indigenous health, planetary health, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The purpose of this slide is just to give you a kind of like a very quick snapshot of the types of services and facilities within which we provide care. So our hospitals, our primary care, which is typically sitting within the communities, our long-term care and complex care facilities, community support, which is vast, and then mental health and substance use within various areas within our jurisdiction. In summary, we have 12 hospitals that falls under our jurisdiction, including 6 mental health and substance use facilities, several long-term care facilities, and primary care and community support. We develop a maintenance strategy to address our assets, large assets such as elevators, piping, roof replacements, etc. Our major facilities that for which we will be seeking approval within the next 2 years will include Hilltop House long-term care expansion, Evergreen long-term care on the North Shore, Cathet Evergreen, which is a long-term care facility, Bamfield, which is sitting on the VGH campus, and then there is a community center within the downtown east side at 46 West Hastings, which is currently under construction. That is not a facility that we own. We will have a lease within that brand new facility to transfer some of our services within the downtown east side. When we're looking at some of the emerging initiatives which we are focused on at the moment, it is the Seashell Mental Health and Substance Use Initiative, the replacement of the Hillsink Hospital and Long-Term Care Facility. We are currently working on a master site plan for the Sea to Sky region, and then there are various rural housing initiatives. Maybe I'll pause here for a second in case there's any questions from any of the directors.
Director Bax.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this presentation so far. So the Sechelt Mental Health and Substance Use Initiative, is that in collaboration with the Foundry initiative that's going on?
I think that is separate, but I'm going to be.
Separate. Foundry is separate.
Okay. Okay.
And this is for mental health and substance uses, is looking at both, more looking at inpatient beds and detox beds.
And there's no age bracket that you're looking at for this. It's just it's across the board. Okay.
And Foundry, remember, Foundry's youth focused.
Yes, it is.
And this Sechelt mental health and substance use will primarily.
Sorry, could I just ask that we move the mic over, because especially online, people
Sorry.
listening online won't be able to hear.
So Foundry is youth, as you know, and for the mental health and substance use, I think this has been on your, on our list for a while, is primarily looking at adult.
Excellent.
Yeah.
One other question. The rural, through the chair. I'm very interested in the rural housing initiatives and what Vancouver Coastal Health can do to help with rural housing.
So I don't know if Sam, you want to lean in a little bit and answer, give the first answer, and then maybe I can come behind.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Sam Samsami, Director of Capital Projects for Sunshine Coast and Central Coast. Yes, we also recognize that it's a priority, and we are looking at each site and trying to understand which areas we can focus on as priority. And I believe also VCH holistically is looking at this issue. Housing, as you know, across the province is an issue. And we're exploring opportunities working with BC Housing as well as within VCH to address this.
So we know that for us, in rural and remote, across Vancouver Coastal, but I think for rural and remote, we know that housing is one of the greatest challenges for us in recruitment and retention. And so what we're doing is looking at what are the opportunities, understanding the need, and then looking at understanding and partnerships either with local community and with our Indigenous partners, and looking at housing opportunities, both here in Sechelt, in Pell River, and also in Bella Bella. And maybe I can just add other emerging initiative that isn't listed, but right now we are working at Sechelt Hospital, looking at the emergency department, we're looking at 2 phases for work we're doing there. One is an immediate solution of adding some space, and then we will go to a longer term, and we're going to do that in partnership. Hopefully, we're just almost done of the immediate. We're working on that with the foundation, and we may, it's something we'd be happy to bring to you and inform you about too.
Thank you. Any other questions from directors? I will ask then, just for a progress update on just related to possibilities for Sechelt mental health and substance use. I know it's a consideration anyway of looking at the closing long-term care facilities and what their current facility capacity is to really take on new programs before they can be completely replaced. So I'm just wondering about, I mean, I understand there has been recent studies on that, and I'm wondering what the update is there.
So is the question, just so I can be clear, is the question with the closing of Totem and Shorncliffe, what is the plan for the facilities, short-term and long-term?
Sure, that's even better. Yeah. Let's just broaden it.
Maybe, Sam, I'll let you lean in again, and then oh, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
Sure. We are currently focused on a transition plan of decanting those facilities into the new facility.
Sam, could you just speak a little bit louder? It's hard to hear.
Sure. Sorry. Is this any better?
Not
Is
much.
this better? Sorry. I'm going to try to speak louder. Hopefully it's a little bit better.
That's better.
Thank you. So at this time, the focus is transitioning the existing patients from those existing facilities into the new facility. And the next step will be assessing the existing facilities and determining the status of them. Essentially, those are old facilities as well, and we need to understand what we can meaningfully repurpose them for. And then once those assessments are done, in a conjunction and informed by the decision that, you know, what the community is asking for in terms of priority and the guidance that we receive from VCH leadership as well as ministry guidelines, holistically we'll make a decision to repurpose those facilities for. And Darlene, would you like to add more?
No, the only thing I would add is to Silas and Director Bax is we also recognize the need around the mental health. I think it's been a need recognized in Sechelt or in the Sunshine Coast for a long time. So we also recognize the need for mental health beds and more mental health and substance use support. So we will be, as we do the assessment and we transition and you know, close those long-term beds or transition them over, we will be looking at that as a priority too. Yeah.
So sorry, what kind of schedule can we be looking at? Is it kind of local engagement, our own engagement as
Sure.
local governments?
Sure. So we will move and transition the residents and staff from Shorncliffe and Totem to the new facility in the new year, in January. Then we will take a period of time to understand and plan. So I don't know if SOM knows that, but I think then we would look at a sort of a 6 to 12, probably a 6-month window of looking at what it is. And I think in the background of that, just before you came, we are setting up with the RHD a working group so we can work more closely, because I think how we have met previously is maybe not quite enough. So we can be informing you along the way. Yeah. And I'll just add too that a big partner in this work also is the foundation. They're very supportive and wanting to be part of that conversation too.
Director Inkster.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chair, for bringing that issue up. If we were to look at the existing facilities and to talk about those needs on, and there may be more community-based facilities, but the hospital-based facility that they had for some of those challenges in the community, it's very small. And I think it was built for a much smaller community and a community that throughout the Sunshine Coast that's changed markedly in the last number of years of some of the social challenges. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I would reiterate that there's certainly a greater need for those kinds of services on the Sunshine Coast. Thanks.
I guess, and following in that, I'd like to dig in a bit deeper on a conversation we had at the liaison meeting, just in the context of capital here in the regional hospital district, and that is the needs. I mean, Director Inkster kind of touched upon it. The needs for long-term care currently and going on into the future. And what VCH's current estimates and plans are for that on the Sunshine Coast.
Sure. So we know that if we map out from now out to 2040, there's quite a dramatic increase across the province, across the Sunshine Coast, across the country, and then there's a bit of a leveling off and a decrease. So we know that the opening of at Trellis will give us an additional 20 beds. It could be 22, but on average around 20 beds. And with that, we will still be short beds on the Sunshine Coast. So then our next phase, as we look at what are we doing in the space we are vacating with Shorncliffe and Totem, I think part of it is looking at mental health needs, part of it is looking at long-term care. And then again, it's looking at partnership with the community and with the nation around what opportunities we have around long-term care. Yeah, for long-term care and housing.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to the presentation. Thank you for that interlude for questions.
Thank you, sir. This is just an overview of equipment. Basically, just give you a little bit of a broader categorization of the major equipment, which is our diagnostic. We've grouped them, and then life support. We have equipment within our pharmacy, our surgical suites, a medical device reprocessing. This is the MDRD, where things are being sterilized for OR and other purposes. The labs. Then we have patient monitoring and treatment. And behind the walls is the food services and minor equipment within that we essentially all accommodate within the capital plan. The overview of equipment, our average spend across the health organization is 42 million. We rely heavily on foundations to support, and on average we get about 40% of the contribution coming from foundations, and you'll see that as we're going through the presentation that actually from our local Sechelt Hospital Foundation, tremendous contribution from them coming forward. We are essentially still, excuse me, still in a little bit of a break-fix mode. And that really means that we have limited ability to actually address newer technology, but where we can, we do so. Any of our prioritized equipment for FY24? Thank you so much. Is really looking at the replacement of radiology room at UBC and an inpatient X-ray room at VGH. On the next slide is just an overview of our IMITS portfolio. And you can see that over time our investment have drastically changed. When one look over the 10-year window, it is really CST, which is our clinical system, clinical information system, where we are investing the most. We are also addressing the infrastructure as on a site-by-site basis as we have been deploying CST across the organization. This is just to provide you with a trend of the last 10 years of what the capital plan looked like. So in FY18, which is 2018, we were spending around 207 million. Right now on FY23, we're spending approximately 630 million was spent. And when we're looking at fiscal 24, the current one, we are spending around, or planning to spend around 915 million. Now, this substantial increase in spend is driven by a number of projects, as is listed on the right side there. It's the new St. Paul's Hospital. We have a brand new acute care tower at Lions Gate. We are redeveloping Richmond Hospital in its entirety. And then there is the VGH OR Phase 2 project. Phase 1 completed last year. So this is the second phase. It's an OR suite over 2 floors. In summary, this is an outline of the 915.5 million for FY24. As you can see, St. Paul's Hospital is basically almost 50% of that cash flow. So that project is well in construction and aiming to complete by 2027. When we're looking at the Lionsgate Acute Care Facility, that is planned to come on in 2024, correct?
completion of Lionsgate will be the fall of 2024, and the patients will move in January 2025.
Thanks, Darlene. And then Richmond Hospital redevelopment is a very long-term project which really runs out to around 2031, 2032, multiple phases within that. St. Vincent's is a long-term care facility that falls under Providence Healthcare. We have just received approval of that project in recent months, so construction has not started on that. Dogwood Long-Term Care is a facility within VCH and in Vancouver catchment area, and that is slated to complete, and we are looking at moving patients in there by around September. The clinical systems transformation project is substantially complete at most of our facilities. It is currently going to be rolling out at UBC Hospital and Richmond Hospital, including some smaller sites into the future, such as Pell River. And I think for Sechelt, that install was done here last year. This is just going to give you a summary of the multi-year cash flow that runs into FY29 and beyond. It really ends in 2032. So the overall project cost is 5.5 billion for the whole of the capital plan, of which to the left, the very column to the left, approximately 1.5 billion of that has been spent to date. And this is giving you a little bit more of a detailed cash flow for each of the large projects. And then when we're looking at the middle section, which is called Other Capital Projects, that is essentially our brick and mortar type of spending, where we are fixing the infrastructure, doing minor renovations, replacing equipment, and upgrading our existing IMITS, whether it be clinical, business systems, or the infrastructure. And then the last component of our capital is the minor capital improvement allocation, or there's different names for it, but it's really just minor capital, and that is an allocation which is spread out across the different communities of care to enable them to address short-term and smaller needs. This is just an overview of the current facilities projects that's underway within, as it was measured within our existing fiscal. We just broke down the Ministry of Health and the Sunshine Coast contribution that you can see in the middle there, just to give you an overview of that. Currently 5.5 million within the capital plan for this year. And this is our current equipment that is underway. This excludes any future investments that may either be coming from the Sechelt Hospital Foundation or the money that we are spending on the minor equipment allocation from the Regional Hospital District. And this is just a snapshot of the overall approved capital projects for the coastal COC. And this is by area, and just highlighted the one that is specific to Sechelt at the bottom. So from the Ministry of Health allocation that we received, which is approximately 74 million in this fiscal, 12 million of that was allocated to coastal. And then I'm going to get to the cost share request, which ties into this very last project. This is a domestic hot water pipe replacement, which ties into a project that was previously approved and for which the regional hospital district committed a cost share. So there was challenges around that project, which resulted in an additional scope that needs to be addressed to resolve the hot water issue. And as you can see, this is impacting our operating room, the lab, the rehab, medical records. It is really very impactful to the overall facility and the services that we deliver, including Totem Lodge. So the request, the cost estimate for this project is $260,000. And we are formally requesting a 40% cost share or $104,000 contribution from you. And then we are going to just get into the project prioritization, the timeline and the process as we have it right now. And just to tie into Darlene's comment earlier, this is where we are looking for the engagement from a representative of the Regional Hospital District Board to actually work by our side to assist in prioritizing our upcoming projects. So the high-level timeline, we will basically start around September with the process. I'm not going to go through all of the dates, but the aim is that by January of 2024, that we would have a prioritized list that we then present to the senior executive team for approval and to the board of directors for VCH for approval. The process is quite lengthy. It's very intense. It relies on a scoring mechanism of the projects because, as you can appreciate, the need is much greater than what we are able to support. So when we are looking at priorities, this is basically the criteria that we are looking at for capital projects overall, and just group them as to how we look at them between our capital projects for facilities, major clinical equipment, and IMITS. The general theme is a strategic alignment overall within the organization. And I'm going to focus on the facilities one to the left, access and flow. And this is as we are scoring the projects. So these are the elements that will assist us in informing that score and then ultimately the priority that we come up with. So we're looking at innovation, safety and risk, urgency, we're looking at any cost benefit, we're looking at the impact on human resources, not just the patient, but our staff as well, including our funding partners. What that really means is when we have the support from any funding partner, it does escalate the priority and enable us to actually move it up in the priority. This is just a different view of the overall prioritization process and the engagement at various levels within the organization. To the left is really the input or where all the requests are generating from. So it is really coming from our clinical leadership, from our facilities maintenance operations department, and various of our lower mainland partners, which includes the lab, the pharmacy, and diagnostic imaging. The aim is to have an approved capital plan prior to us actually closing out fiscal 24. So similar to this year, this is a capital plan that was approved by the VCH board in February. We are going to represent that plan to the board in September, because we have had quite a number of changes, projects added, etc. I don't want to go over this. I included it in the package to show you essentially the work that sits behind the scoring tool that we go through. And this is a template that's being used, and the average weight that's being assigned to each one of these elements of scoring that we are looking at. And this is a continuation of that spreadsheet. When we look at equipment, the process is very similar, but the involvement or the stakeholder engagement is slightly different, where we are reaching out to medical imaging, laboratory, pharmacy, and then we're also looking at, from a COC perspective, what is their need for general medicine, and surgery would generally be included in there, which is excluded from something like medical imaging. We are using a different scoring tool, which is an American-based tool, which is very slick, actually, in fact. We bring together a committee, and then we work very closely with our biomedical engineers, which is really, we see them as independent partners, or independent from the COCs. So they are sitting with information pertaining to each one of these specific equipment items that's being requested for replacement. They are the people that retain the record on the maintenance, on the breakdowns. They can, in other words, give us a very quick assessment on what the piece of equipment looked like and validate the priority as we have received it. We then bring the group all together, including the representatives from our communities of care, which in general includes the VPs such as Darlene, to help us in that final decision making. And this is just another sample to show you the kind of information that we are gathering before we go through that prioritization process. So quite a bit of upfront work that occurs to get us to that point where we can then actually sit down and have a conversation around the priorities and which are the most important. And this is a continuation of that similar form, just a bit of a description. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan.
And we can open the floor for any questions.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just technical issue for staff. I've got a technical issue I'm wondering about. I am actually trying to re-log in, and I need to be promoted as a panelist for my my laptop, if that's possible. Thank you. I've got Director McMahon.
Thank you. At a previous meeting within the last year, when you folks were here, we raised the issue of water conservation. As you are probably aware, we are in a state of drought across the province, and we had a state of emergency on the coast for water. If we hadn't been able to supply enough water, we wouldn't have a hospital. I mean, you can't run without water. And so we are very interested in what the Sechelt Hospital can do to conserve. And we are more than happy, I think I'm speaking for the board, but I think we would be more than happy to fund water conservation measures at Sechelt Hospital. Sechelt Hospital is, if not our #1 water user on the Sunshine Coast, it's #2. You are one of the top 2 water users, and there's probably a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of conservation measures that could be taken in the aging hospital. So how can we get water conservation measures for Sechelt Hospital into your process in a priority manner? Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. I agree with you. I think it is a priority, and it is something we can, I think there is low-hanging fruit. I see Sam has taken his mute off, so I'll let you do, because I know it's work we're doing with Bella Bella too. Go ahead, Sam.
Yes, and thank you, Darlene. And certainly appreciate and echo the concern, Director Mon. And I believe both last year and the following year, when this issue came about, there were significant discussions with many stakeholders, including the district, and an emergency team was set up to address that, and we were constantly monitoring that. There's 2 aspects to it. I think you've raised a great point. We are constantly looking at conservation measures in what we can do and define project scopes that would address that immediately. However, I think as we all appreciate, this is a much larger problem for the community, and I think more work needs to be done. I can also say that we are in feasibility studies to have contingency plans for the hospital that needs to be put in place much sooner than later. And I'm encouraged by the notion of support from the district. So we'll certainly keep you abreast of our progress on that front. However, we need to work with all the stakeholders to ensure that this doesn't happen, and we have contingency plans on a long-term basis. As Darlene alluded to, at Bella Bella, we were faced with a similar situation. There's an emergency contingency plan that's put in place. The water was shipped to sites with the environmental impact. I think this is an issue across the geography of our service territory, and it's something that needs to be on top of the mind to address that long term.
Because I think there's 2 pieces, Director, that you make. The one piece Sam's talking about is when we have a problem, what will we do? You're talking about preventing, or what can we do to help prevent, right? And I think that is a priority for us. So as we go forward and you appoint to work with us in this priority work, I think it can be a priority that we work on together for sure. Because I think you're right. It's like last year was quite frightening, and I see it's already level 2, right? So, yeah, we can commit to that.
Director Bax.
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap my head around some of the financials that we're asked to look at. So, according to the page 25, that they ask that we're going to be looking at for is this for year 2024 or 2025? It's $104,000, and I was looking at so that's on page 25. On page 22, there's is this $167,000 that the Regional District Hospital Board has already approved? Is that last year's ask? I'm just trying to wrap my head around the accounting in it. And I know that on page 21, it talks about the year 2023, where it was $1.5 million that came from the Regional District Board. So the ask in January is going to be for $104,000, is that correct?
Yes, so if
I'll go to
can
Johan to answer that.
Thank you, sir. If I can just speak to that, what you see, the 104 is the new ask. What you see on the earlier presentation was a collective ask from prior years. It's not all just last year, because some of these projects have multi-year cash flows, and part of our challenge is, and the slowness, of the approval is that we are essentially awaiting your approval before we initiate a project. So sometimes we are not very well aligned. We need to have our capital plan first approved before we can come to you and make that formal request. So it takes a while to actually deliver the projects.
Yeah, and part of that schedule and taking a while is that, as you can see, we don't actually have a staff report. Talking about at this stage, this is where the request happens, and then that'll be a subsequent meeting where we will consider the request and possibly approve it. There's no recommendation at this point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions from directors?
Can I just speak to that question?
Yeah.
And I think this is just my maybe third meeting with the directors, but what I did hear loud and clear in the earlier meetings was the need to align so that we're not coming. It's the first time you hear about something, right? And so that's why we want to set up a committee, meet with you, so that although we need to have the approval at our own internal before we come to the RHD, you will know about it. We will know if you approve it or not. We will know if it's your priority too, and I think that will help us go forward together. So I think that's why you were asking and why we agree that we need to be meeting more regularly.
Thank you. And I also wanted to mention the fact that your scoring tool was fantastic. I loved it.
CFO Perot?
Thank you, Chair. Just to just provide a little bit of context as far as the RHD process goes, and it's somewhat outlined in the subsequent staff report. As far as capital requests go, typically and per the MOU, we do have VCH come to us in July with a preview of what some of the capital requests could be. And as mentioned, then a subsequent staff report in October as part of the provisional budget is provided in October with funding options in consideration of the funding requests. And so in October as well, VCH is invited back, especially if there's been any changes to those requests and timeline requirements. And then we provide funding options to include in the provisional budget to be included in the subsequent budget year. So there's no decisions at this point from the RHD's perspective. And if anything, a resolution to have staff explore options on how to fund it or not would be, I think, what we would be looking for right now. Thank you.
Okay, do we need that, or is that just?
Yes,
Okay,
we definitely should.
Let's just do that right now because it's, I mean, it seems convenient. So we need a resolution that the board requests that staff explore options to fund the request from Vancouver Coastal Health, today's request. Yeah. Moved by director. I have to shift into board mode. McMahon, and seconded by Director Toth. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. So any more questions on this this item, number 3? Because we do have another item. Yeah, Director Bax, are you okay, yeah. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is regarding Seashell Hospital minor capital equipment updates. And we have Glenn joining us.
So hello, everyone. I'm Glenn Weigel, Director with our Project Management Office. I think Marie Duperreau will have submitted a list of capital requests probably about a week ago. I can present them here if it's convenient to share screen, and perhaps we can just run through them and discuss.
Yeah, please give that a try.
Okay.
It should be possible.
Okay, so this is what Marie forwarded to Darlene and myself, and I understand that she submitted this to you collectively also. Our top priority would be this first item, the OR lights. That includes installation from Stryker. The lights in both of the ORs are kind of end of service. Our FMO person, Adam Helfer, has been really instrumental in keeping them running, and he continues to do that, but they really do need replacing. So that is the top priority item, that first one. And then the rest I'll just run through. So the Spirit mental health beds are beds specific for mental health patients. They have sort of anti-ligature structure to them. That's the second request. We also have a ventilator, a gyroscope and blades. So that's an intubation device, an ice machine for maternity, additional mattresses. So these are spare mattresses that would be swapped in to existing beds. I might mention that we have a regional bed replacement program that's coming to all of VCH sites, and that will include Seashelt. That will happen late this summer or early fall. The next item is wheelchairs, and then there's an ECG. There is a cardiac stress test equipment, which is the treadmill and stress test monitor. A CareScape monitor, that's a vital signs monitor for medical imaging patients. And then there are 4 pieces of equipment for the laboratory. One is a platelet agitator for blood testing, an osmometer also for blood testing. There's a urine analyzer, and then this temperature monitoring system is for sample integrity. And then we have a second page, the last 3 items. There's an ECT, a cast cutter, and 2 pipe freezers. And those pipe freezers are for FMO. They allow work on the water system within the hospital without shutting water off. So they allow FMO to freeze sections of the pipe and allow water to flow in other sections. So again, that's the ask that Marie took. It totals a little over $600,000. And I understand that there has been in previous years some carryover. And so this is, represents a fairly significant piece, but not the total of what I understand remains in the balance. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions around any of this?
Well, I think we'll be asking, just especially as a new board, some questions about process on this item,
Sure.
Since we didn't have all the material. But I'll ask first if there are any specific questions about the list. Or Director Stamford.
Thank you, Chair. Being fairly new to this, I'm wondering, is this list indicative of just as is business, or is this increasing service level? Just in a general sense, I can see that the requests are all over, but
Yeah.
do you see this increasing service?
I can talk
So
to a
just-
little bit, Glenn, if you want.
Sure, Darlene.
Yeah.
So that's more about the process than any. I'll just ask if there are any questions about the items on the list, because I think CFO Perot is ready to talk about the process too. But okay, so seeing none, let's jump into that then. Yeah, thank you.
Answer, or do you want CFO to go first?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted to comment as far as the RHD process goes to minor equipment.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Darlene.
Okay. So if we talk about, I think your question, if I summarize it, is this new service delivery or is this maintenance? Maintaining service. And I think a lot of this is maintaining service. If we look at anything related to the operating room, so whether that's the lights, some of this is intubation equipment, so I don't know if that's for the OR or for emerge, but we have expanded the OR hours. So now we have 2 ORs running full days and extended hours. And so part of it is making sure that we have proper lighting for that. And, this is end of life, the OR issue and the OR light issue. And so I think FMO does everything to maintain, but there's a point in time we have to replace. So I would say a lot of this is it's maintaining service as opposed to expanding service and maintaining safety.
Go to CFO Perot now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So included in the SCRHD budget is an amount to allocate towards this type of minor capital. There's also a policy. And so what we typically do at this particular time as well is that BCH provides us an update as to what they're going to expend those funds. I think there's over, I think for the 2023 budget, there was, I think, well over $800,000 of unspent funds. And 120 of that was new money for 2023. And we have actually reduced that for 2 years consecutively to, as VCH was helping to go through that supply chain management and catch up, I think, on the expenditures. So that will be something that we'll revisit for the 2024 budget. So there's no decisions. So the policy essentially says that the regional district won't make decisions related to some of these minor capital. We'll leave it to the healthcare professionals to decide what they need for these amounts under 150,000. And so they just provide us a reporting and status update on those items.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Thank you. So does this list just come to us and there is a different list that goes to the foundation and the auxiliary? Or do you have a list of capital and, you know, we all look at it to see how much we can kick in?
I think it's the latter from what I understand. But
Let you go, Glenn.
Yeah, so we maintain a kind of a master list of capital requests for each of the sites, including Seashell. I meet with Marie and her managers every month, and they bring new priorities to the list, and we kind of review what's on there and talk about funding sources for each of them. And then we move forward with ordering. So again, there's a master capital list. It's available through Marie to you. There are other items obviously on there that are not included in the list that we just went through.
thank you. Director Bax. Oh, sorry.
Just so I can add, sometimes what will happen historically is that if there is a identified desire for the foundation to supply something that maybe is on our original list, there isn't really a, like the RHD doesn't get involved in trying to change those particular ones. I think it's worked on between the hospital foundation, the VCH, and the RHD essentially just pays for items that are not covered in other sources of funding.
Director Bax.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it all. This fund has been approved in a previous budget then, so this is money that we've approved for them to spend on these minor expenses. This is 2022-23 budget expenses. I know there's no, this was included in the last financial plan, and this the $663,000, are we paying 40% of that, or is that mixed between the foundation and the other?
Oh,
funders?
yeah, that's not what I heard, but I'll just ask for that clarity again from CFO Perot, maybe.
Yeah, this would be the amounts that the SRHD from Vancouver Coastal Health would be funding 100% of. So these, there are different classifications, and Chair, if maybe this is for another day, but essentially there are minor capital, which this particular report identifies, which are items within 150,000. And then there are, it's typically equipment in nature. The items that were presented by Johan earlier are items that are more facility related, so they're outside of like equipment and furnitures, fixtures, and whatnot. They are things that are of capital nature, so things like HVAC, elevators, those types of things. So that is decided, and those are where 40% cost shares are typically decided and presented for consideration.
So is this something?
Sorry.
It's a follow-up.
I need to recognize.
Sorry, it's a follow-up.
jump in. Just give me a minute, just a second even. Director Bax.
This is something that's been pre-approved then, is it?
Yeah, essentially. That's
That's
what
what
we're,
I thought.
yeah,
That's-
yeah.
that was just looking for
The
some
ability to submit these and,
All right,
yeah, and
thank
fund them, yeah. Okay, so I think we're finished up on this item. We've gone through the questions, and there's, as CFO Perot clarified, there's no need for board direction on this one, yeah. Okay, one, McMahon?
So I heard a request for us to appoint someone
That's, I think, the
to
next
a
item.
working committee.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, let's talk
Thank
about that in the context of the MOU. So the reason our MOU is on the agenda is for director's information. And I thank CFO Perot for putting together this this backgrounder on short notice on just getting this information to the board, in informing us about the MOU and the fact that it's the last update was 2014. I think that touches upon what we're hearing from Darlene too, about like the need for some renewal here and a discussion on improving communications with all three RHDs in the region. So yeah, I mean, I think a direction we can take here is to move to engage Vancouver Coastal Health and the other two RHDs in discussing renewal of the MOU, which I think aligns with what we heard from Darlene earlier today. I'll just look. Does that?
Well, I think
Would that be sensible?
I wasn't specifically looking at renewal, but I'm fine for that too. But what I was looking at is just as part of partnership that we should be working together more closely and making sure that when we're coming to you with asks, you understand that in advance of it. And we're not just coming and presenting this and we've had no discussion along the way. And so we really appreciate your support. We appreciate the work you do and your support. And it is your community and your hospital. So I think that's what the working group idea was about, is really working together to prioritize and making sure you have a voice in that and understand before we just come with an ask.
So I think, I think the thought was that discussing the MOU, even if we make minor changes to it, we'll at least reopen that same conversation.
Sure.
Director McMahon?
so I think we're talking about two things here. We're talking about a working group, which would be presumably only for our hospital area.
That's right.
And then we are looking at the MOU, which would involve the other hospital districts. Okay. Are we at the point of looking for a volunteer for the working group, or where are we going with that, Chair?
First, I think I did make a suggestion about renewing the MOU. And I know I've heard from the other chairs, they're really interested in having a whole regional discussion on things. So we'll deal with that matter first. Director McMahon?
Right, so what is the process there? Should we meet with the other RHDs first to go over it from the RHD point of view and then meet with VCH? Would that be the appropriate method, or what do you think?
I think something close to the language I suggested, which is to engage it's actually officially called Powell River still. So engage the Powell River and Sea to Sky regional hospital districts and Vancouver Coastal Health in the prospect, I'll even say, of renewing our memorandum of understanding. So it would involve reaching out to them and getting because I don't think we can't unilaterally do that. We need to get buy-in from the others. I see forlorn looks from staff. So go to staff.
No forlorn. Just wondering if we can help if correspondence to that effect wants to be sent, like a formal proposal to them, or?
Yeah, we can work that out.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
we'll be
great.
able to work that out after we pass this general direction.
great.
Yeah. So I'll make that motion. Is there a seconder? Is that a seconded by Director Stamford? Director McMahon?
I really would like a little clarification, because I'm not sure what engaging in a prospect is. Like, if we're writing a letter to the other regional hospital districts in VCH, expressing our desire to reopen this MOU, I understand that, but I wasn't, the wording is a little unclear to me. Thank you.
That's what we'll do then, however it works best. Yeah, I mean, I'll take that on as chair, and staff will take it on as direction to figure out the best way to do it. Director Lee.
I probably missed it, but is there something specific we would like to be adding to the MOU, or is there a whole lot of things that we're be putting on the table, or do we include that in our letter to Paul River? Like, how would we figure that part out?
I think you know, again, this discussion came up at this overall discussion about communications, especially came up at the governance meeting with the other two districts, and yeah, it's especially. I think the feeling was improving communications, and everybody agreed on that. So probably that would be the focus of getting some more clear language about you know, expectations around communications and how to work out that kind of improved schedule that Darlene was just talking about, and not being surprised.
Good, thank you. That clarifies it for me.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion? The motion carries. And on to the topic of a volunteer for, what are we calling it again? It's a local working group. Yeah. I'm certainly willing to take that on as the chair of this body. And I'm open to being formally appointed to that. Director McMahon?
Just inquiring who else would be on this working group.
Is that question for me? From my perspective, the working group would be myself and Johan, maybe Glenn and Marie. That's what I'm thinking from our VCH perspective. And I guess as we go forward, we may ad hoc invite Sam to come if we have questions that he could provide insights to, but that's what we're thinking of. And if it just needs to be two people, it's probably Johan and I.
Director McMahon?
And so that our representative on the working group would report back to this board then about where things go. Okay, good, thank you very much.
Darlene.
Sorry, and I just wanted to say for Director McMahon, and so that would be the same on our side. So as we're doing this work, we would report back to the committees that make these decisions, and we went through that process, and then our senior executive too.
Director Lee.
How many members would you envision from our board here on the working group? 1 or 2 or 3 or?
I can answer
Any
that.
idea?
One is what the request was, yeah.
The request is for 1?
Yeah.
I tend to like to see 2 in case one is sick or unavailable.
I think it's
And
going to
alternate.
be informal, so I mean, if we, I think I would probably, if I were to do it as the chair, I'd ask the vice chair to fill in for me
Yes,
if that's kind of
that would be what I
acceptable to
was-
everybody here.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
a named alternate or just,
Sure. Whatever. Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
just wondering what the rest thought, but sure.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
That the board appoint.
I'd make the motion that Director White be the primary, and I believe, Donna, you're already the.
Vice
so she
Director
would be
McMahon is the alternate.
The alternate, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Seconded by Director Toth. Are we okay over there? Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
checking
McKinley.
in, this, on process.
Are you even part of the regional hospital district?
This would,
Okay.
this would be an interesting situation where we have elected to staff instead of staff to staff or elected to elected. So we're proposing a working group that consists of staff from one organization and elected officials from another, which isn't typically how we do it.
That was the request. As a member of the board, is it? I mean, I know this is kind of coming together in an ad hoc way. Does it make sense to have a staff member as well?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I know this was your idea, which we
Well,
like.
I
We
think-
appreciate the idea.
I think the idea came from our conversations of wanting more engagement
Mm-hmm.
together and working together. How you appoint your individuals to the working group, I really can't say how you should. I guess for us, Johan leads sort of this planning piece. I'm the vice president for the Coastal Community of Care, and so that's how I came up with who would be our reps.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is a partnership, so I think we are going to say that we would like 2 representatives. If
Oh, please.
okay, and that motion was seconded. Could I entertain an amendment to appoint CFO Perot to this working group as well? Oh, Dean wants to be on it. Okay.
No. I'm wondering if it's something that we could take offline and come back with some thoughts on. Just figuring out.
Okay. I'm kind
Instead-
of hearing
instead of
something
just-
different here.
Instead
So-
of just rolling through on the fly.
So I'll have a. Sure. When's our next meeting?
It's October. However, I think the staff discussion is, we're not sure we need a board motion to this effect.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay.
we're
I
thinking
think
if
we can just do
don't-
it.
yeah,
I agree.
exactly.
So yeah. Okay.
Did you want me to rescind that motion?
I'm gonna rule as chair that that given the information we just received, the motion isn't in order. It's not. Or yeah, if that works for everybody. Two hands up yet, Director McMahon.
I was just going to point out that you don't have an elected level at VCH, so it's
Yeah,
it's an apples and oranges situation.
we're going to be
We'll-
having further
we'll-
discussions
we'll
on this,
figure something
apparently. So, Director Stamford.
It was along the same lines. You've got other working groups that we represent on, such as the Ocean Watch. We have both staff and elected on that. It's a working group. So.
I would like to thank both representatives from, and also the representatives who are joining us online too, from Vancouver Coastal Health for being here. We really appreciate you making the ferry trip over, I presume.
It is wonderful to
in the summer, yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted to say thanks for having us. It's really, we're happy we could come in person and really appreciate everything you do. So thank you very much.
Director Inkster? Sorry, I've got one more hand up, I see. I think he's either muted or saying.
I just muted because there's some echo, but Chair, I was a little confused on that last piece before you, because I guess you're moving to adjournment so we're waiting till October.
That was a motion to adjourn, I heard from Director Inkster. Seconded?
Yeah. Well, there was my question first, and yeah, that could be my motion, although that's the chair's role. But I was just asking about the issue of the 2 representatives on that. So we're bringing that back to October to make those decisions?
No,
then?
we
That's
aren't.
3 months from now?
We're not going to be making that decision as a board. We're just going to be doing it when figure out how best to do it between staff and board. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, not clear to me, but I'll just
Okay.
see that.
For clarity, Tina is going to tell us how to do it, and we're going to do it.
Okay.
Or Sherry is, okay. Okay, and also there was a motion from Director Inkster to adjourn in that, and seconded by Director Bax. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Waiting for me?
Yes.